standing with them rather than with their oppressors. Now, let's take a look at this issue from a U.S. national security perspective. The current Iranian regime is a brutal theocracy where the description of their government as a collection of zealots is not an exaggeration, it's a fact. Iran today is a center of international terrorism, and much of it is aimed at the United States. The Iranian regime uses terror as an instrument of policy, both internally and externally. This is why an Iranian nuclear weapons capability would pose a monumental security risk not only to the countries in the Mideast and in Europe, but would threaten the stability and security of the entire democratic world. Summarizing the analysis of the impact of a nuclear-armed Iran are 6 major concerns to the United States. First, an Iran with nuclear weapons would embolden the regime to carry out its aggressive ambitions in the Mideast and beyond. Second, a nuclear capability in Iran would pose a direct threat to U.S. forces in the region, to European allies, and to the continental United States. Third, proliferation of nuclear weapons would ensue by nations in the region that would feel compelled to attain their own nuclear capability to counter Iran's. Just yesterday, the London Times reported that Saudi Arabia could acquire nuclear weapons within weeks of Iran developing atomic weapons as a threat from Tehran triggers an arms race across the Mideast. Fourth, nuclear weapons would consolidate the Iranian mullahs' power and guarantee their survival, thus severely degrading the prospect of democracy in Iran. Fifth, the bomb would become an existential threat to Israel, given Iran's stated objective of wiping Israel off the map. And sixth, Iran's role at the nexus of weapons of mass destruction and terrorism would make it likely that the regime would sell nuclear weapons to other countries or terrorist groups. It's also important to recognize that the most secretive information about the current Iranian regime's connection in international terrorism, about its nuclear weapons program, and about its menacing intentions for Iraq has to a large extent come from the Iranian opposition movement. The MEK's access to intelligence about all aspects of Iranian society, as well as clandestine aspects of the regime, are very important to countering the malicious aspirations of the current regime in Iran. In large measure, this is why Iran is doing all it can to eliminate the MEK. For decades, the regime has made punishment of the Iranian opposition its prime negotiating point, compelling Western nations to restrict the organization's activities while trying to eliminate it. Unfortunately, this tactic has too often been successful. The most significant result being the 1997 designation of the MEK by the U.S. State Department as a foreign terrorist organization. But a nuclear arsenal would create a more powerful and resilient repressive machine and eliminate any hope for democratic change. This is why the Iranian people, even more than the rest of the world, cannot afford a nuclear-armed Iran. Now, Iran has never been more vulnerable than it is today. They might not say that externally. They don't want that message to come across. Their leaders' fear is that the organized opposition will continue to gain more visibility and international support. Keeping the MEK on the list of foreign terrorist organizations is actually limiting U.S. national security options unnecessarily, while the Ayatollahs are threatening us and the rest of the world with their nuclear bomb making. Removal of the MEK from the list is in the United States' best interest from a national security perspective. Removal would also send a strong message to the Iranians that their efforts to unseat the radical fundamentalist leaders would no longer be viewed by the United States as terrorism, but rather as an exercise of their legitimate right to change the future. President Obama, Secretary Clinton, it's time to make this important contribution to the security of the United States and to the world, as well as reiterating your commitment to defend human rights. Remove the MEK from the list of foreign terrorist organizations and do it now.